Air Canada CRJ 900 plane crash in New Orleans. I've said it on half of my videos. You cannot let the controllers, the boss, the passengers, or the airplane rush you. That being said, they were landing. They're in a CRJ 900 and they're landing. So they're coming down the runway, and if you look, this is the runway right here. They're landing on runway 4. So they have to land, basically touch down 1,000 foot down the runway. This fire truck was at Delta, and he asked permission to go across the runway, which he has to do. The controllers, the ground controllers control the airport. They control everything. If you upset them and make them mad, they can put you in a penalty box like hockey. It's an invisible penalty box. And if you make them mad or upset them or keep making mistakes, they will put you in a penalty box and make you sit there 30 minutes. Now, the CRJ 900 had just landed. If he lands 1,000 foot down the runway, he's touching down here. He hits this plane 2,000 more foot down the runway. He ain't doing no 20, 30 miles an hour. He's probably doing, oh my God, 50, 60 miles an hour. And the truck crossed the runway. So this is what happens in the air. When you're coming up to the airport and you're 50 miles out, they're gonna tell you, expect runway 4, and where are you parking? They're gonna say, well, I'm parking over here at this gate. Okay, expect to clear the runway at Delta or clear the runway at Quebec. It depends on the other traffic coming. So they're gonna tell you that way before you get there. Then, while you're in the air, 50 miles away, you and the captain are gonna discuss the landing. So we're gonna hit that and we're gonna say, okay, we're gonna land on runway 4. We're gonna get off on Quebec and we're gonna taxi, and you're gonna draw it. So when you land, one pilot is looking at this and talking to the radio. The other pilot is taxiing the airplane. Now, I never flown a CRJ 900. I went to school on the CRJ 200, and I'm pretty sure it has a tiller wheel on the left-hand pilot's console that he does the steering with. So if the captain's landing, he's just gonna steer with the tiller wheel. If the first officer's landing, once he lands, he's gonna say, okay, your controls, and the captain's gonna say my controls, and he's gonna steer it with the tiller wheel. But the way they're landing and the speed they're going, there's nothing the pilots could have done. There's nothing. Now, the ground belongs to the controllers. You have to do every single thing they say. I've been in and out of LaGuardia maybe 10 times. You got JFK there, you got Newark there, it's congested, everybody's trying to get in. That's the most congested airspace in the world, is right up in there. So the controllers have a big job. Once you get turned onto the runway in the air, you're talking to tower. Once you get on the ground, then you're talking to ground. So the ground guy told the fire truck, cleared to cross the runway. And he probably thought he was gonna hurry up and cross the runway. But then the fire truck guy, this is my opinion and speculation, probably stopped and looked and looked and looked. At night, you can't always, there's so many lights, you can't always see that plane coming in. He probably stopped and looked and then took off across the runway. By this time, the plane that's doing 120 got closer, and the controller realized what happened. He's telling him to stop. He just told another jet to stop, and in the same breath, he's saying, stop, 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 everyone stop, stop. And I don't think the driver caught it. Now, the driver's listening, but he's not listening as intently as the pilots, because right now we're using 30% of our brain. When you're flying, you're using 110%. And when you're going upstate New York, especially landing at Tetersboro, JFK, LaGuardia, your mind, you're hearing everybody. You're hearing everybody. And you're processing what everybody says. And they're listening. But the fire truck guy, he doesn't do that all day long. He doesn't hear 500 radio transmissions all day long and processes them. He probably, when the controller said, I think he said Frontier, stop on the runway, and then he said stop, 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 everyone stop, stop, stop. He probably didn't pick that up, and he pulled out right in front of that airplane. So, whose fault is it? If you get hit in your fire truck by a CRJ 900 coming down the runway, it's going to be your fault. I'm sorry, but it's going to be your fault. There's nothing the pilots in the CRJ 900 could have done. They probably never saw that truck till right at the end. They're coming in, they're busy. They're coming in, their nose at an angle. They touch down. You land the jet like that twice. You land the main wheels first, then you land the nose. So they probably touch down those main wheels, and they're slowly letting that nose come down. By the time they let the nose come down, they probably saw the fire truck. There's nothing they can do to hit the brakes. Before you cross a runway, you got to make sure. I mean, if you have to stop and you say, ground control, verify that we do have permission to cross this runway. You cannot go on what the controllers say. You got to look for yourself. You got to watch for yourself. Now, the CRJ 900, they can't stop. They can't take back off. There's nothing they could have done. There's nothing. They're coming in nose high, touching down 1,000 foot down the runway. The wheels touch down. That may be a couple more seconds, and they slowly let that nose down. By the time they let that nose down, it's too late. There's a video of it. There's gonna be a video of it come up in the next 24 hours. There's videos all over that airport, and the video is gonna come up. They said that plane was doing 30. I don't think it was doing 30. It had just landed. And that happened at the close end of the runway where they landed. Anyway, you never let the controllers, the passengers, the boss, or the airplane rush you. But in this situation, there's nothing the pilots could have done, you know. And really, it's not really the controller's fault, but the controller's got to understand. He's got to babysit that fire truck. He's got to babysit it. That fire truck, they never get to go anywhere. They sit for weeks at a time and never get to go anywhere, collecting good money. So when they do go somewhere, they got to listen. You can't be talking about, you got a sterile cockpit in an airplane below 10,000 foot. That means below 10,000 foot, you can't talk about golf, your kids' private school, your wife buying a $5,000 purse. You can't talk about that. You can't talk about anything below 10,000 foot. And the fire truck guy, he doesn't have the exposure of this radio chatter, constant, picking up, processing it, thinking about it. He doesn't have that. He's happy to get in that fire truck and leave that fire station. He was responding to an odor on another airplane that was perhaps fire. So I don't see that it's the controller's fault, but the controller, you got to babysit that. You got to babysit some of these people. You get a little Cessna 172 taxiing around, you got to babysit that guy. You don't have to babysit a CRJ 900. I mean, when you gave him clearance to land, they said CRJ 900, whatever your tail number in, you're cleared to land. Now they're expecting that runway to be clear. There's nothing they can do. They're not at fault. The fire truck is at fault. The controller is not really at fault. But he's got to take some fault because he's got to babysit those guys. They don't have the... I remember when I was young, and we were in a 172. I just got my license. It's in the 1980s. And it was an older plane, and the windows were yellowed a little bit. So I'm taking all my friends flying, and we're going over to Memphis, and we're landed. Back then, you could land at Memphis, and you could call the control tower and say, can we come up in the tower and do a tour? Yeah, we would taxi to the door of the tower, get out of the airplane, go up there, and take a tour of the tower. You can't do that anymore. Too many lawyers. You just can't do that anymore. The control tower visit, the only way you're going to visit that control tower if you pass the exam to go to air traffic control school, and it's like 36 weeks. You ain't getting in that tower. So the controller has to know that he's got to baby that guy and watch him. My 172 I was talking about, we landed, and I'm taxiing, and I got my friend in there, and we're taxiing, and all of a sudden the plane's not going very good. So I hear the tower say, I think it was 737 Sierra Hotel. 737 Sierra Hotel. Do you want us to send some guys down there to help you push that plane out of the grass? What I had done is I got off of the taxiway in the grass. I don't know how I did it, but when he said that, I said, oh my God. So I knew immediately to pull the power, because you don't want to hit a light or hit a bump, hit the prop. So we turned the plane off. Me and my friend got out of the plane. We was just off the taxiway a little bit. We pushed it back on there. If that happened today, especially in Memphis, you'd be filling out all kinds of paperwork, and you'd be standing before the FAA. Luckily, that happened in 1980 and not in 2026. But that's what happened. It's going to be the fire truck guy first. He's got to look. I mean, you can't look. When you're landing a twin airplane and you put the gear down way back in the pattern, you're constantly checking that gear. You never stop checking the gear. Right before you land, you do a suicide gear check just to make sure. Now, most of these airplanes, they're not going to slow down if you don't put the gear down. But you just keep checking that gear. You never quit checking the gear. And when you're crossing a runway at LaGuardia and you're in a fire truck, those guys, they need more training. They need to watch videos of planes landing, because there's so many lights around there, they probably never even saw that plane. Did they look both ways? I'm sure they did. Are they relying on what the controller says, you're cleared to cross the runway? But then he changed his mind a few minutes later. When he said you're cleared to cross the runway, they expect you to do it now. They don't expect you to do it in 30 seconds. They expect you to do it now. And if that guy pulled up there and stopped, and he's looking and looking and looking, and then he pulls out, that plane coming at 120 is gonna close in on him quick. So what I think happened, and this is speculation, this is my analysis of 40 years, the fire truck pulled up there. He didn't cross it. He stopped, and he's looking. He's looking. And then he goes, and the controller wanted him to pull up there and cross the runway, not pull up there and stop. When there's a crash, they stop every airplane, and this is what they say to the fire trucks. You have the whole airport. They never said that. He was just responding to smoke in another airplane. He just told him to cross the runway, and he pulled up there and stopped and was looking and then decided to go when he should have went 30 seconds before that. I'm thinking pretty sure that that's what's going to happen. We're going to see. It's just a sad, it ruined my dinner. I'm in the Philippines eating my dinner, and I'm looking at the TV. I'm like, oh my God, what happened now? And I came home and I watched it. It didn't take long to figure out what happened. These guys and these fire trucks, they need more training, and they need to know when you get to that runway and he says cross it, you got to go. You can't sit there 30 seconds looking and then go, because by then another plane's coming. They're doing a squeeze play. A squeeze play, there's 5 planes landing up, a plane lands, pull a position and hold. He gets off the runway. That guy takes off. Another plane lands. Another one pulls a position and hold. It's like this. If it wasn't, nothing would ever go on up there. It is constant stress. It's like an aircraft carrier. You ever seen an aircraft carrier? They take off, they pull off, they take off, they land, and it just never stops. And the same thing with those airports up there. Everybody wants to fly for $79, and everybody wants a direct flight, and the whole aircraft industry has become a Greyhound bus route. You know, people get on the airplane drunk, fighting in their pajamas, hadn't had a bath. It's terrible. Everybody wants to go for $39. They want their own seat. They want to sit first class. I hate going to Charlotte. I hate it. You go to Charlotte and you're going to hold every time. You're going to hold. Then you're going to land. They're never going to land you on the runway close to where you're going. They're going to land you somewhere, and then you're going to taxi 30 minutes. You're going to hold 15 minutes. You're going to taxi 30 minutes. Then when you get to the gate, there's not going to be a marshaller. The pilot cannot pull the plane into the gate unless there's two marshallers. He's sitting there. There's nothing he can do. He's waiting on a marshaller. You would think somebody at Delta would call over there and say, get those marshallers there on time. And, you know, 15 minutes later, you see him walking up. Well, okay, I'm here. There's no work ethic anymore. I mean, the work ethic in America, I don't know what to say. I don't know. Anyway, that's my early analysis on what happened. I'm sick about it. I hate to see an airplane. That airplane is a beer can. That fire truck is a big block of steel, okay? The airplane is a flying beer can full of aviation fuel. Luckily, it didn't hit the wing. Now, unluckily, it hit the front and killed the pilots. I mean, there's no good situation. That's my early analysis and speculation. I'll do a follow-up in a couple of days, but I'm pretty sure I called it. I hate it. Thanks.